Hello, everyone. I'm Sergeant Major of the Army, retired Ken Preston, and welcome to this edition of Soldier Today podcast. A few weeks ago, we had Sergeant Major of the Army, Daniel A. Dailey, here in our studio for a discussion on the Senior Enlisted Centralized Promotion Board, specifically those promotion boards for senior non-commissioned officers competing for promotion to Sergeant First Class, Master Sergeant First Sergeant, and Sergeant Major Command Sergeant Major. Changing from a legacy system, which has been in place for many years, based on time in service, time and grade, transitioning now to a system based on merit. The SMA asked our listeners to forward their questions, and he would come back for a follow-up discussion to answer those questions and concerns. So here in our studio is our Sergeant Major of the Army, Daniel A. Dailey. SMA, welcome to Soldier Today podcast.
Well, it's great to be here, and it's great to come back and answer some questions. We asked for them. They gave them to us, so we're going to answer.
You asked for them, and here they are. Yeah. So we got about 6, and I think this will be a good discussion. And so for the first question, and I'll just I won't give the names, but I'll just say this is from First Sergeant Jeremy. What he asks, he says that the non-commissioned officer evaluation boards will be held once a year, and then we'll slot non-commissioned officers for schools on a quarterly basis.
That's correct.
Now, he says this makes sense for the advanced leader course, the senior leader course, and the master leaders course. But what about the sergeant's major course? This is a once-a-year course. Is this going to stay the same? The message that came out, and this is a message that he received, says that they will compete classes 69 and 70 for the command select course. With the shortage of sergeant's major, how is this affecting promotion to Sergeant Major and Command Sergeant Major?
Yeah, all great questions. So, of course, she's right. So the ALC, SLC, and MLC, we will release on a quarterly basis, and there's one board a year. There's also one board a year for Sergeant's Major, and that board will determine attendance for the United States Army Sergeant Majors Academy for the following year. With regards to the shortage, so just dispelling rumors out there, we don't have a shortage of Sergeant Majors. We are balanced right now across the Army. Promotions are solid. When we say balanced, that means we know what the loss rate is, so historic and known loss and unforecasted loss based upon historic norms, and our promotion rates are solid. All right, so very good, and they're steady projected for the future. There will be a CSL portion of that annual nominative board too, but that doesn't affect the people going to Sergeant Major Academy. Once they graduate the Sergeant Major Academy and they've been selected for a Sergeant Major position, they'll spend a year in that position. And then the board that they get picked up on that following year, because every rank will be boarded every year, then they will be assessed for a CSL position.
Right. Okay. So with the advanced, the senior, and the master leaders courses, I mean, obviously there's one promotion board a year that selects those respective non-commissioned officers for promotion, but quarterly, those non-commissioned officers are selected and assigned for school. That's
right. So as you can imagine, after that board meets, it's an assessment board. We assess people based upon talent and their skill level in MOS. We rank order them. Number 1 will be offered a school slot first, and then so on and so forth. And we release those allocations quarterly.
Sure.
And we intend to release promotion allocations quarterly as well.
Okay. And that's regardless whether it's, the advanced, senior, or master leaders course or the Sergeant Major's course.
That's right. Well, except with regards to semi-centralized selection, that's still a promotion point calculation for E5 and E6.
That's right. Yeah, for the semi-centralized promotion system. So now how does this affect for Guard and Reserve soldiers as well?
So Guard and Reserve, we have not transitioned to this new promotion system. They're still within their traditional promotion system within their states.
All right. So just as I read back through some of the questions, so classes 69 and 70 for the CSEL, obviously not tied to the Sergeant Major's course, but will it be both classes being looked at for CSEL process?
Yes, they will. And it's based upon requirements, though. So I got to manage expectations here. So we have a certain number of known requirements for all CSL positions for every MOS, right?
Yep.
And we know what our current inventory is. So to say that we never will, or we won't, or we do or don't dip into a current Sergeant Major class or one that just graduated isn't necessarily always true. It'll always be based upon the requirements. Our goal is to select for a Sergeant Major class. They attend the Sergeant Major Academy. They graduate. They spend 12 months in a operational Sergeant Major position, a 6-level position, and then they'd be eligible for selection to CSL. We will, if the Army requires it, dip into some of that population early.
Yeah. Okay, good. So second question. Now, this comes from a Sergeant First Class. He asks, SMA Dailey, I listened to the podcast and appreciate the great information that was discussed.
Well, that's a plus right there, Ken.
That's right. That's right. Thumbs up. Now he says, I am an AGR, Active Guard Reserve, Sergeant First Class, 88 Mike 40, truck driver. Mm-hmm. So he's being evaluated for promotion to E8 this year. He says, last October, he was given the opportunity to attend and successfully complete the Master Leaders course as a train ahead. Mm-hmm. His question is, how would this affect an OML number? Would this put him at a higher number? As an example, if a soldier was selected, say, number 13 on the list and was not a graduate of the Master Leader course, and he happened to be number 14 on the list and having completed the Master Leader course, does this mean now he has to wait for number 13 to attend and graduate from the Master Leader course and get promoted before he can get promoted? Or does he get to jump ahead for promotion?
This is a great question. And I'm glad he asked it. I'm glad, again, that he's listening to our podcast. All right. So first I want to tell you is thanks for going to MLC and thanks for completing it, because in the future, that's what we want. We want to train ahead. So when we make when we have the assessment roster, we want many of those people already trained. So the answer to his question is we will give number 13 on the OML the opportunity to go to school. And here's where he comes in advantage, having already been to MLC. If they do not go to school, then we will skip number 13 and go straight to him, and he will be promoted if he's fully eligible. And it sounds like he is, because he's already been to MLC. Yep. He's on the OML as number 14. So what I can tell you is, yes, it will have an advantage, but we can't disadvantage people on the list before him. And that's why we're doing these selection lists 18 months time and grade. We're not going to promote anybody early. What we're doing is we're giving ourselves more time to train the population so they can be promoted on time and not have to wait for them to go to school.
And those that are on the list are on there based on merit.
Merit, that's right. So we don't want to disadvantage them. So they will be given an opportunity to go to school. We won't hold promotions, and normally we don't promote one or two on a list. We promote groups, right? So let's just say if number 12, 13, and 14 were up for promotion, and they haven't been trained, number 13, 12, and 13 will offer to school, and number 14, we could promote you. No problem, right? It's because you've already fully qualified. But bottom line is we want to stay true to the merit list, give them the first opportunity to go to school. And when a promotion authorization comes up, we offer the first fully eligible person on the list the opportunity to be promoted.
Yes, okay. Mm-hmm. And I would say, too, that having gone to school sooner, that knowledge that he gained from going to school will now kind of set him a little bit apart, whatever that time difference is from his peers.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, Ken, but his performance at school, if that was part of his board record and he was a distinguished honor grad or on the commandant's list, that's going to be advantageous, of course. He could score higher on the assessment board. So that's one of the things I've sit on promotion boards that we look at when we judge the full talent of a soldier.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Okay, so question number 3 comes from a listener out there, and I'll just identify him by 027.
Okay.
And the question that he says, what if you're not allowed to beat your peers because you're stuck in a certain slot? And the example that he gives, he says that he is in a platoon sergeant position now for the last 36 months. He's been told that he cannot move to another position because there's no one else to assume that platoon sergeant position. Mm-hmm. However, the personnel that he's competing against are given the opportunity for some staff time, and because there's plenty of personnel to allow them to move forward.
Yeah, it's a great question. And first and foremost, we have needs in the Army. And obviously, platoon sergeant position, that is a critical position to the success of the Army and those soldiers that are underneath his leadership. And I would tell you is I wouldn't focus too much on worrying about what the job is. More importantly is how well you're doing the job. And that's what the board looks at. They look at your NCOERs, your non-commissioned officer evaluation report. And I'll tell you, platoon sergeant is held in high regard in every one of the MOSs, right? So that's what we want to do. I spent 4 years as a platoon sergeant, yeah. and I think you spent plenty of time as a platoon sergeant.
And one of the things, I never complained about being in a leadership position.
No. Actually, that is one of the best positions to be in if you want the board to look at your overall performance, because those key leadership positions, if you look at DAPAM 600-25 in every one of the MOSs, it will tell you that the first position you need to have, or the most preferred position in each grade, is that leadership position. A squad leader as a staff sergeant, a platoon sergeant as a sergeant first class, and a first sergeant as a master sergeant. So I tell you, is focus more on the performance and your soldiers in your current position. And of course, broadening the positions are good, But if the Army's asking you to do something, the board members are intelligent and mature enough to realize that that's where the Army needed you.
That's exactly right. The Army's got a mission for you. You're doing what the Army's telling you to do.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here's question number 4, and this comes from, and I'll just say this is Web 35. And the question reads, my brother and best friend have been stuck at Master Sergeant for years. He's been past multiple boards. He has multiple deployments. He's been with soldiers at every prison from Gitmo to Leavenworth. Now at headquarters, he is still stuck.
Yeah, what I'd say is that, we promote based upon authorization. So the number of authorized positions we have at E9 determine the promotion allocations for the next year. One of the things that I'd tell you, without looking at his personal record and being able to evaluate why he has or has not been promoted, is in the future, we're going to change the way we do promotions and selections and the way we maintain people in the Army. So one of the problems we have, and the reason why we're changing our promotion system to a talent assessment system, is because we don't have a mechanism at the, let's say an E9 sticks around for a long time, to continue to evaluate them for their performance, right? And it could cause a backlog in the system. An E9 that stays for 30 years and their performance isn't up to par as maybe the next person trying to enter into those ranks.
So they're just kind of marking time.
That's right. And under this new system, they're going to be looked at every year. Even if they're in grade, they're going to be looked at every year, and they're going to be evaluated against their peers and the people who are competing to become sergeants major, right? Their performance has to be at par or better in order to maintain their position. And this is part of creating what I call upward mobility for our soldiers. And it's key and essential that we do this. And we're blessed that our leadership believes in the concept, and we're moving towards this beginning this year with E9s, EH next year, and Sergeant First Class the third year, fully implemented in 3 years. And I think it's going to change the way soldiers look at how we evaluate their performance overall and how we assess for promotion.
Yeah, and that's great too. I mean, I think, you start with us, at the sergeant major level. You start up the top and then you kind of work your way down. And it's good that we're including all senior non-commissioned officers for Sergeant First Class and above.
That's right.
So our next question, and this question comes from Brian. And Brian is a retired staff sergeant, and he writes, Sergeant Major of the Army Dailey, my question is, how are non-commissioned officers that are put in similar situations underrated because they are not buddies with their raters in a personal off-duty relationship, supposed to compete with peers that use that to their advantage?
Well, I'll tell you that's discouraging to hear, because that should not be tolerated and should not be happening within our ranks. And we promote and select our soldiers based upon performance and potential. It troubles me to hear that. And I'd like to believe that that's not happening in our formations. But if it is, then I would say that you need to use your chain of command.
Absolutely.
And inform them of it, right? So this is critical that our non-commissioned officers counsel our soldiers on a quarterly basis, and they sit down with them, outline the expectations for excellence, outline the expectations of what they're supposed to do in their job, and then give them accurate performance measures. And then their NCOER at the end of the year reflects that work that's been done for 4 quarters.
Sure. And I think also, too, you've got a rater, the senior rater, reviewers. It's all part of that NCO support chain of command. And it's really sitting down and talking with them and getting that feedback.
Yep. And, the recent changes we made to the non-commissioned officer evaluation system is to help get after this. And like you said, it's not just the individual rater, but your senior rater is judging you on your potential. All right. If you have an issue like this, my best advice is you go talk to your chain of command.
Yeah, I think, and the point too about potential, that's the senior rater.
That's right.
And so that's where it's at. Okay, so here's another question, and this one comes from Carlin, who is a gray area retiree, and he writes, Sergeant Major of the Army Dailey, what restrictions or limitations will there be for Guard and Reserves to ensure that full-time AGRs and technicians are not the only ones getting the promotions and the M-Day Guard non-commissioned officer is not left behind?
Yeah, just like us, in the Guard promotion system, is we use a fair system with a board process that regardless of whether you're full-time or M-Day or a technician, is each one of those packets is voted on their merit. And that's what's important. I'll tell you, having sat multiple boards, and I know that you have, Sergeant Major Preston, is that there's a lot of myths out there, and I'd be very honest, and the perceptions, but I could tell you, and this is my honest feedback, after having been through that process and now running that process, we work very hard to maintain the discipline and the fairness within that system. And I think that the DA Secretariat in each one of the states with their board process does a phenomenal job to do that.
Yeah, I think so. And, and as I kind of look at the whole discussion and these questions here too, I think that, all the work that you and what the Army has done now to really make it more beneficial for non-commissioned officers as they go through the system to really showcase what their contributions are to the Army, what they're doing each day in their units.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the important things is, we just are doing our Senior Enlisted Training Leader Development Conference, an annual conference we hold with all the nominative sergeant majors in El Paso, Texas. And one of the key things that we're covering this year is all of the things involved with the new talent management system. We're training every single nominative sergeant major. They're going to leave here with a training package, a train the trainer. And I think that many of our non-commissioned officers are going to be very pleased to see the changes that we're about to make. And it's going to answer a lot of the questions we just talked about today.
Sure.
But here's what I challenge you to. If you have questions on that, get back on there and write us some questions back on the podcast, and we'll get back to you and answer them.
Absolutely. Okay, so SMA, thanks very much. And this has been a great discussion, and it's good to kind of scuba dive down into, some of these really kind of down in the weeds kind of questions. And I think that our listeners out there will appreciate some of these discussions. So thanks very much for joining us here today, and hope to see you again on another podcast.
Well, Ken, thank you. And again, I can't thank enough for what the Association of the United States Army does to keep our soldiers informed and represent our soldiers in the United States. Thank you.
To all our listeners, thanks for joining. Be sure to subscribe to Army Matters Podcast on iTunes and everywhere podcasts are found. Keep it locked here for all Army Matters and for next week's episode with Army Real Talk. AUSA is the U.S. Army's professional association, a voice for the Army and support for the soldier. For more information about AUSA or to become a member, visit ausa.org.